Barricades broken, clashes with police and sit-ins in the midst of heavy police deployment. That's how the day went by in the national capital as Congress hit the streets clad in all black. Ladies and gentlemen, some dramatic scenes were witnessed in Delhi early this morning. Videos doing the rounds of Congress leaders being roughed up by the Delhi police and detained. Counter videos also seen where the Congress members of parliament were resisting action by the police. Which version is true? It's hard to say, and interestingly, it is also hard to say what the real reason of this protest really was. Now the Congress says they were out protesting the alleged failures of this government, price rise, inflation, unemployment, and the Bure Din for the Aam Aadmi is our agenda, said the Congress leaders. They were all promptly detained by the Delhi police because these protests had no permission. Congress alleged this was the center stifling their voices. Listen in.
इनको लगता है कि जितने भी इनके विपक्ष में जो कुछ कहता है उनको ये दबा सकते हैं और इनको ये लगता है कि दबाने के बाद ऐसे अपनी फोर्स दिखाने के बाद हम चुपचाप से समझौता करके बस में बैठ जाएंगे इनके साथ। तो क्यों करें हम तो एक मकसद से है ना। यहाँ हमारा मकसद ये है कि हम इनके मंत्री कह रहे हैं इनको महंगाई नहीं दिखती, तो हम पीएम हाउस तक चल के महंगाई दिखाना चाहते हैं, गैस का सिलेंडर दिखाना चाहते हैं जो आज कोई खरीद नहीं सकता है। इतनी महंगाई है, चाहे गरीब हो चाहे मिडिल क्लास के हो, सब तरस रहे हैं, सब तड़प रहे हैं और कोई कुछ ना बोले। उनके लिए महंगाई तो है नहीं, उन्होंने तो पूरी देश की संपत्ति, मोदी जी ने पूरे देश की संपत्ति अपने दोस्तों को दे दी है, उन पे कभी कोई कार्रवाई नहीं है। 2-4 लोग रईस हो गए हैं, उनके महल बने हुए हैं, लेकिन जो आम जनता है वो तरस रही है, तड़प रही है। ये ठीक है क्या? उनको महंगाई इसलिए नहीं दिखती, उनके लिए है ही नहीं, उनके पास पैसा ही पैसा है, जो चाहे जब खरीदे सब्जी खरीद सकते हैं, दाल, आटा, चावल, सरसों का तेल, सब कुछ महंगा हो गया। गैस सिलेंडर किस लिए उठा के ले जा रहे हैं हम? क्योंकि नहीं दिख रही है ना महंगाई, देखिए।
Now, before they quoted this detention, Rahul Gandhi once again alleged that democracy was dead in India. Addressing a news conference right before the protest began, the Congress member of parliament spoke of alleged misuse of central agencies by the BJP. It's the onset of dictatorship, he alleged. The timing is interesting. Right before the price rise protest comes a misuse of agency attack, leaving us wondering what was the real motive of this Black Friday protest. Listen in to Rahul Gandhi.
How are you enjoying the onset of dictatorship in India? Are you enjoying it? लोकतंत्र की जो मौत हो रही है उसके बारे में क्या लगता है आपको? आज हिंदुस्तान में 4 लोगों की डिक्टेटरशिप है।
My job is to resist the idea of the RSS. That's my job. And I'm going to do it. The more I do it, the more I will be attacked. The harder I will be attacked. I am happy. Attack me. हाँ, हिटलर भी चुनाव जीत के आया था। हाँ, हिटलर भी चुनाव जीत जाता था। हिटलर चुनाव कैसे जीतता था? हिटलर चुनाव ऐसे जीतता था कि जर्मनी के पूरे इंस्टीट्यूशंस उसके हाथ में थे। मुझे पूरा का पूरा ढांचा दे दो, फिर मैं दिखाऊंगा आपको कैसे इलेक्शन जीता जाता है।
But why was the Congress out to save their leaders and the first family on a day no summons, no questioning or no raids were conducted? That's the question Union Home Minister Amit Shah asked while linking this protest to the Ram Janmabhoomi groundbreaking. In a pointed attack on the Congress party, Shah asked why they chose today to wear black when it's the day the foundation stone was laid by the grand Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. Listen.
मैं तो समझ ही नहीं सकता विरोध का कार्यक्रम क्यों आज दिया गया है। और हर रोज जब विरोध के कार्यक्रम होते थे तो अपने अपने ड्रेस में होते थे। आज सभी के सभी लोग काले कपड़े पहनकर करें। कांग्रेस ने आज का दिन इसीलिए विरोध के लिए और विशेषकर काले कपड़ों में विरोध के लिए सिलेक्ट किया है कि वो एक सटल मैसेज देना चाहते हैं कि हम राम जन्मभूमि के शिलान्यास का विरोध करते हैं और अपनी तुष्टीकरण की नीति को वो आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं। और मैं तो यही कहना चाहूंगा कि तुष्टीकरण की नीति न देश के लिए अच्छी है न कांग्रेस के लिए अच्छी है।
The same sentiment was echoed by Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath as well. Remember, 2 years ago, Prime Minister Modi on this very day in a grand ceremony had laid the foundation stone of the Ram temple in Ayodhya. Listen in to why the BJP thinks the Congress protest today was meant to insult this very faith of Ram Bhakts.
इस दिवस पर भारत की आस्था को अपमानित करने वाला कांग्रेस के नेताओं का आचरण अत्यंत निंदनीय है। कांग्रेस पार्टी कई दिनों से आंदोलन कर रही है, अपने सामान्य कपड़ों में कर रही थी। सहमति असहमति हो सकती थी, लेकिन 5 अगस्त की तिथि को श्री राम जन्मभूमि मंदिर निर्माण कार्य के शुभारंभ दिवस के दिन, अयोध्या दिवस के दिन, माननीय उच्चतम न्यायालय के सम्मान दिवस के दिन राम भक्तों को अपमानित करने वाला कांग्रेस का यह आचरण एक बार फिर जब जाहिर हुआ है। आज कांग्रेसियों ने काले कपड़े पहन करके जो प्रदर्शन किया है, यह श्री राम जन्मभूमि मंदिर निर्माण की तिथि के दिन यह राम भक्तों का अपमान है।
So the legitimate question on the news are tonight: save masters of Congress and insult Mandir. Is that the Congress's plan? That's the question and the debate on the other side. Black protest twist. That's the hashtag and the debate coming up.
Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
And joining me tonight, GVL Narsimha Rao, Member of Parliament and National Spokesperson of the BJP, Smita Prakash, Editor, ANI, Suhail Seth, author and columnist, Mita Chakraborty, Congress supporter, Anurag Bhadoria, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. But my first question goes to Sanjay Jha, author and suspended leader of the Congress Party. Sanjay Jha, Black Friday. Is it the Congress guilty as charged because this is appeasement? You wanted to belittle the Ayodhya Divas, as Yogi Adityanath and Home Minister Amit Shah said, and the fact that while there was some talk that Priyanka Gandhi Vadra did about the price rise and inflation issue, she actually was more worried about ED action only against the Congress party, and that's exactly what Rahul Gandhi was worried about. So I want to ask you, what was this protest all about, and why a Black Friday protest in black clothes?
Well, Navika, first and foremost, the statements made by the Home Minister and the UP Chief Minister are so absurd, atrocious and preposterous that I don't want to even dignify it by making a response to that statement. But there is something very serious when such responsible and powerful politicians try and link this protest of the Congress party, where Rahul Gandhi and various other leaders actually said why they were protesting, to link it to Ayodhya. I mean, it just manifests in a great number of ways how desperate is the BJP to polarize India and use the wildest fictional imagination conceivable. I mean, I can only tell you that this tells you how intellectually bankrupt the BJP. But the larger question, I want to keep my answer very brief. I think there are very eminent panelists on the show. They can comment at leisure. My simple answer, and I speak not just as a member of the Congress party, suspended or otherwise, but as a citizen of our country, a great country, in my opinion, which is slipping down a rabbit hole where I think democratic and civil liberties are concerned. And I'm just going to keep it very short, Navika, by once again reiterating that the right to protest, whether it's Suhail, whether it's Mita, whether we do it on social media, on your show, or on the streets, is exactly what democracy is all about. And you cannot kind of, create a political culture in this country where anyone who says anything critical about whether it's a prime minister or the government is treated as an anti-national. You remember I was on the show with GVL on your show, I think, just a couple of programs ago. And GVL, before he finished his sentence, ended up calling the Congress anti-national. And you're talking about celebrating the 75th year of independence, and you're calling a party with leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Sardar Patel, Maulana Azad. You want a Congress-booked Bharat, and then you want to celebrate an independence, and you want to insult the very party that fought for the freedom struggle. So, I can't comment on the BJP beyond a point. Let Mr. Rao respond and hand it over to the other panel.
Well, Sanjay Jha, considering we are so convinced about the democratic values of the Congress party doesn't even talk to us because we ask them tough questions. Now, that's democracy for you, because there are some tough questions to be asked.
Let me answer that for you, Navika. I'm glad you raised this. Can I be honest with you? I have personally raised this issue in the Congress party when I was there, and I continue to mention this even today. I believe the biggest mistake that, and I'll say so on your program today, Rahul Gandhi has made a fundamental mistake by rubbishing media. I thought even today he made a good statement, but there was no need to kind of make a sarcastic observation that the media will do nothing. You're debating it today. I mean, I don't care the outcome of the conversation, but dialogue must happen. And I do feel that the Congress party is making a terrible tactical error in not engaging.
But then they are not Hitlers, but Modi is. GVL Narsimha Rao, different strokes for different folks. Respond to the charge sheet leveled against you by Mr. Sanjay Jha.
Not just Sanjay, but a volley of statements coming from various Congress leaders, including Rahul, Priyanka. I think they really shock you. Is it something, do they think this nation has a very limited collective memory? Who has destroyed institutions in this country? Did the Congress party not rule this country for close to 6 decades? Rahul Gandhi is now telling the country that if I have all the institutions, I will tell you how to win elections. Is he not mocking India's democracy? Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has been elected twice by the people of this country by a thumping majority. If you have lost your even leader of the opposition status, you cannot blame it on the BJP. I think you are insulting and you are mocking a democracy by making such statements. And who is desperate, Sanjay? You are saying BJP is desperate. The desperation of the Congress party is evident today. What they are protesting against is action against corruption. What they are protesting against is law enforcement agencies doing their job. It is the Congress which is desperate. What is this talk about price rise? GST. Is the hypocrisy of the Congress party not exposed? The governments of Rajasthan, governments of Chhattisgarh, they all were party to the decisions on GST, and they don't even object, they don't even dissent the decisions. They unilaterally and unanimously accept everything, and today you come out and cheaply protest on the streets. I think, is that not hypocrisy of the Congress party? And why black flags on a day, I think on August 5, which is remembered by the people of this country, millions and crores of Ram devotees in this country, as the day where this Bhavya, the foundation for the Bhavya Ram Mandir was laid. Certainly it's an issue of great emotion. Today is also a great festival in the entire South India, possibly in the entire country. Today is that Shravan Friday. Has the Congress party chosen this second Friday of the Shravan Mass and the day of Ayodhya Temple Foundation Day only to mock at Hindus and to appease minorities? Certainly this is a question that we will ask. There is nothing. The Congress party does this openly, does this appeasement openly, and you have a problem when we question this. I think the real thing, the story of today's protest, Navika, is the statement made by Mr. Salman Khurshid. I don't know if you can pull out this statement. I think it's a great revelation. I think I found that to be the most relevant statement that any Congress leader has made. He said during the protest, Salman Khurshid told the media, I'm reading from Times of India website, he said, I am here to save my Neta and my Neta saves me. This is Salman Khurshid on record. So Khurshid was asked about BJP's, was asked why BJP was saying something, and then he replied like this. Why will I
pull
come
that
to,
bite out? Yes.
the family?
We'll play that sound bite for you. Salman Khurshid.
And my leader saves me.
परिवार को बचाने के लिए मैं क्यों आऊंगा? मैं अपने नेता को बचाने के लिए आऊंगा। मेरा नेता मुझे बचाता है। अगर इसको वो परिवार की परिभाषा बना देते हैं तो मुझे कोई उसमें कष्ट नहीं।
परिवार मुझे बताता है, मेरा नेता मुझे बचाता है, मैं उसको बचाऊंगा. So they are here for the परिवार. Mita Chakraborty, this protest had nothing to do with price rise or problems of the common man, because those problems stand where they are. All this was agreed to by the Congress leaders in the GST Council meeting. This is all a tamasha to save the परिवार from law enforcement and investigation agencies. Did you have any other doubt about it? Because Rahul Gandhi did not even mention GST, Aloo, Bengan, or even gas prices or petrol prices once in his press conference this morning. So, are you under any confusion what this protest was all about?
Democracy.
Well, I'm not under any confusion about what this protest is all about, because the protest was clearly about the price hike and unemployment and the implementation of GST on some food products, and it was covered by several Congress leaders during several press interactions. Now, what is really baffling is that when the BJP party does not have a political comeback, the only fallback option that they have is to drag religion into the discourse. It's very unfortunate. When we are discussing people issues, it's a fact that since last September, the inflation rate has been consistently high. Can anyone deny that? No. The inflation rate in the past few months has been well above 7% every consecutive month. Can anyone deny that? No. But the BJP government does not want to discuss any data that is not favorable for their discourse. Is it not a fact that the rural unemployment rate and the urban unemployment rate remains well above 7%? It's a fact that people are suffering because of unemployment, because of jobless growth, and because of high inflation rate. But as an opposition party, which is supposed to play a very important role in any healthy democracy, an opposition party is not within its rights to raise people's issues. What is the role of an opposition party in a democracy? Tell me that. Are they not supposed to raise issues that affect the common people of the nation on a day-to-day basis? Is that not the reason why they have been elected and sent to the parliament? They cannot raise those issues within the parliament. They cannot raise the Congress workers or the opposition party workers cannot raise those issues on the streets. Why were they denied permission today? In any healthy democracy, right to protest is a very basic right. They were not indulging in violence. They were doing peaceful demonstrations. They were doing peaceful protest. By denying the permission, by doing all the theatrics that they did, they actually made this a much bigger issue. And when they did not have a political comeback, which they could not come back with proper data, with proper political reasoning, they have to drag religion into the discourse. How unfortunate can this discourse become? That you do not have anything to say about the high prices. All right. You do not have anything to say about the high unemployment. But you have to drag religion into the discourse then.
So Suhail said the Congress as the opposition should be allowed free pass on the streets of Lutyens, Delhi, marching up to the President House, marching to the Prime Minister's house, not a protest site at Ram Leela, and they should have been given permission. Where do you stand on that? I think you're on mute.
Let me begin by commiserating my good friend Sanjay Jha. He and Rahul Gandhi are the last two Devdases in India's political system. He, because his party doesn't take him back, and Rahul Gandhi, because the electorate doesn't vote for him enough. Sanjay is absolutely right. Sometimes a lot is said about an issue which may not have any meaning, but the fact is that it gets traction. I want to answer Mita's question more specifically. You have every right to protest. Of course, that's a democratic right. But tell me, Mita, when price rise is such a pressing issue, why should Kharge spend a lot of time in Rajya Sabha questioning why the fact he was called in by the Enforcement Directorate? More congressmen have protested over the fact that Mrs. Gandhi and Mr. Gandhi were respectively called in by the Enforcement Directorate rather than anything to do with national priorities. That's fact number one. Fact number two, it is quite apparent that inflation is not an India issue alone. Mita, you're well versed with geopolitics. Across the world, we are suffering from inflationary behavior, and we are seeing this rampantly. The fact is, India has been far better insulated because of its consumptive population. Ask any economist, including Kaushik Basu, who gets his economic lessons from taxi drivers. Number three, you have every right to protest, but that protest doesn't mean you compromise the security of the head of state and the head of government. You wanted to protest, you wore black clothes, and you stood outside Parliament, fair enough. You wanted to protest, you had a press conference at 9:30 where you sadly compared the sitting Prime Minister of democratic India to Adolf Hitler, fine. If that is the limit of your knowledge in terms of analogies qua history, that's your problem. But tell me, Mita, as a responsible Indian, forget which party you may or may not belong to, we have every right to have a dignified conversation about issues in a state of deep harmony, not deep disharmony. What happened today? I mean, it was a protest for no rhyme or reason. You had Parliament in session. The Congress party chose to stand outside Parliament and protest. You've disrupted Parliament. Now you will say that BJP also did it, but two rights don't make a wrong. I mean, two wrongs don't make a right. The fact is, the opposition has no serious issues to discuss. They abuse the media, but they also use the media where they need to. What happened today is a sham of a protest. What happened today is a sham of price rise. You know what price rise would be? If I were Mrs. Gandhi, I would have given up my state-sponsored home dwellings. I would have then fought the National Herald case as it should be in courts of law. I would have submitted myself to investigative agencies. What is the form of entitlement? Ashok Gehlot, one of the Congress chief ministers, says the ED should go to Mrs. Gandhi's house. Next, you would want the Chief Justice Ramanna of India to set up a court in Mrs. Gandhi's house. Those days are over, Mita. This is a country which has torn itself away from the past of entitlement, from the past of prowess and power. It's a country which is now different. We may not like that different country, we may not agree with it, but please don't believe that every protest that is snuffed because of security reasons is an attack on democracy. An attack on democracy is when you refuse to discuss issues in Parliament and you want to discuss issues on the streets of Delhi. That's an attack on democracy. That's when you shame democracy. You shame democracy when you believe wearing black clothes will bring prices down. You shame democracy when you believe that three people can hold an entire nation to ransom. You shame democracy when you believe you're the entitled family. There's only one Gandhi we venerate, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. No, I'm sorry. Let me finish. I didn't interrupt you. And you're as Bengali as I am, so we all respect the dignity of speech. I will end by just saying this. For with forms of government, let fools contest. That which is governed best is best. With forms of protest, let's not involve equanimity. Let's not talk about equality. We have to protest in a dignified manner. And today's protest was more a protest about the family rather than about the nation. Sanjay Jha very rightly said one thing. I wouldn't also not believe that, Rahul Gandhi would remember August 5 is the anniversary or the second anniversary of Ram Mandir. I don't think he has that kind of historical perspective. The fact is, and even Sanjay would agree, if we need to change the tempo of India's democracy, we need to change our behavior. It cannot be political egos. It has to be people's issues. Every time we make it political egos,
But that's what it's all boiled down to. Well, BJP did, blockade of parliament, so we should do it too, and we should do it more than them.
But that's my point, Navika. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Absolutely.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
Smita Prakash, I want to ask you, Smita Prakash, on the day the price rise discussion took place in the Lok Sabha, the Congress walked out. Rahul Gandhi walked out. He did not want to debate the issues of price rise and inflation on the floor of the House. They just walked out. They did not make their speeches to put the finance minister on the mat. They did not raise the issues of people. They just walked out, easy way out, and then protests on the streets. This morning when he addressed the press conference, what did he say? He said, give me command of those institutions and I will win elections and show you Hitler also used to win elections. I want to ask, is this not an affront? Is this not something that puts down the people of India and the democracy? Is, his word about the democracy in India an insult to the people who choose their government and who vote for parties? And if control of institutions is the only way, then how did Mamata Banerjee win Bengal? And why did Rahul Gandhi and his party lose elections in 2014? Is this just histrionics, bravado, or rhetoric that is leading the opposition and the Congress party's protest?
Navika, that press conference that you speak about, it was half an hour where he said that media kuch dikhayegi nahi, and it was carried live on all national channels, wall to wall, without editing. So, and then 8 hours of that, Congress protest ran on all national channels, and it ran without interruption, without editing, nothing. So then, to say that media is dead, democracy is dead, I don't understand it. 8 hours, after 8 hours, now debates on all channels. So where is the Congress saying that they don't get? I think this persecution complex has to end for the Congress. Sanjay rightfully says that, he's been saying this in the Congress internal meetings, he had been saying this. But then what happened in the evening was also interesting, with the BJP bringing out its ballistic missiles, if I may say, BrahMos, and the Prithvi missile that they have, which is Amit Shah and Yogi Adityanath. So, we're not known as a country of spinners for no reason. While the Congress says that, today's protest was for price rise, that's their spin. The BJP says that it was black clothes to protest the Ram Janmabhoomi Shilanyas. The fact is that, the Congress, which had these dramatic scenes today between, Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi tussling and tugging and jumping and wall-to-wall TV coverage. They are saying that, Section 144, the police says Section 144 was broken. As far as the Congress is concerned, they don't care a fig now about permissions. They will violate parliament laws, they will violate Delhi police laws, whatever it is, because according to them, democracy is under threat. So it is not just their right to protest, it is also their duty to break all laws. So what we saw today is something which is going to be replicated now for the next couple of years, that they will break laws, and they will do this because this is going to get them television mileage, and they feel that is their right.
And then
what is significant, Navika, I think also is that AAP and
the people of India and their issues? अनुराग भदौरिया, क्या वो जरूरी है?
बहुत अच्छी आपने बात कही। आम आदमी की बात तो सोहेल सेठ ने भी नहीं की। इतनी लंबे डायलॉग मार ले, एक बार भी बोल देते महंगाई बेरोजगारी देश में ज्यादा है, खाने पीने की वस्तुओं पे 5% जीएसटी लगा दी गई। एक बार बोल देते शिव भक्तों के बारे में, कृष्ण भक्तों के बारे में, सावन का महीना है, आपने उन पे दूध दही छाछ पे जीएसटी लगा दी। क्या उन भक्तों का अपमान नहीं हुआ? ये लोग वो लोग हैं जो सिलेक्टिव बात करते हैं, ये अपनी बात करना चाहेंगे। मैं इनको एक कोट कर दूं, मध्य प्रदेश के हाई कोर्ट ने पन्ना कलेक्टर को, पन्ना के जो कलेक्टर उनको फटकार लगाई है और बोला है पन्ना कलेक्टर सत्ताधारी बीजेपी के क्या एजेंट बन गए हैं जिन्होंने बीजेपी को उपाध्यक्ष को वहां जिता दिया। ये मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं, मध्य प्रदेश के हाई कोर्ट ने बोला है बीजेपी को कि बीजेपी के जिताने पे उन्होंने पन्ना कलेक्टर को फटकार लगाई है। तो इसके मतलब भारतीय जनता पार्टी जिस तरह की राजनीति देश के अंदर में कर रही है, वो असली मुद्दों से ध्यान भटकाने की बात करती है। तरह तरह की बातें हो रही हैं, लेकिन महंगाई पे कोई चर्चा नहीं होना चाहता। बात पार्लियामेंट की कि पार्लियामेंट में महंगाई पे चर्चा हुई, मैंने आपकी बात मान ली। क्या एक दिन में महंगाई पे चर्चा होनी चाहिए? जिस देश में महंगाई इतनी ज्यादा हो गई हो, 80 करोड़ लोगों को भारतीय जनता पार्टी कह रही है कि मुझे फ्री में अनाज खिलाना पड़ रहा है, मतलब इतनी भुखमरी के कगार पे हम हैं कि हमें अनाज देना पड़ रहा है। वो अपने पैरों पे नहीं खड़े, उनके पास कोई रोजगार नहीं, इसलिए हमें उन्हें खिलाना पड़ रहा है। और वो पैसा कहां से आता है? वो तो जीएसटी से ही वसूल किया जाता है। जीएसटी का पैसा आता है, आप जनता का पैसा जनता में बांट के अपनी वाहवाही लूटना चाहते कि हम फ्री में खिला रहे हैं। एक तो फ्री में वर्ड आपको इस्तेमाल नहीं करना चाहिए था, दूसरा आप 80 करोड़ लोगों को अगर खाना की जरूरत है, इसके मतलब 80 करोड़ लोग इस देश में परेशान हैं। तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जनता के, जो आपने नाविका जी बोले, आम जनता की बात करनी चाहिए, जिसमें ना आपके पैनलिस्ट ने बात की, ना आपने मुद्दा तो उठाया, बट इस पर चर्चा नहीं होगी। एक दिन पार्लियामेंट में चर्चा हुई और सीतारमन जी इधर उधर की बातें करके अपना डाटा देके चलेगी। इस पे तो कम से कम 15-20 दिन तक चर्चा होनी चाहिए थी कि आखिर देश में आम आदमी ने
12 दिन जो विपक्ष ने जाया किए वो किसी गिनती में
भारतीय जनता पार्टी क्यों नहीं चर्चा कराया? भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने
वो किसी गिनती में नहीं है। नहीं और वॉकआउट हो जाए वो भी किसी गिनती में नहीं है। और आप शायद भूल रहे हैं कि 2 साल पैंडेमिक रहा है पूरी दुनिया में। तो पार्लियामेंट सोहेल सेठ से आपने सोहेल सेठ का नाम लिया था। चलिए, फर्स्ट राइट ऑफ रिबटल सोहेल सेठ को, एंड देन आई एम कमिंग टू जीवीएल।
नहीं पार्लियामेंट
मेरे भाई अनुराग ने बहुत ही सरल और सही बात की कि पार्लियामेंट में ये चर्चा 10-15 दिन तक चलनी चाहिए। मैं मानता हूं, मैं ये भी मानता हूं कि या अखिलेश जी या मुलायम सिंह जी दोनों ने इस टाइप का प्रदर्शन नहीं किया, क्योंकि वो जानते हैं कि पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी की सरलता क्या है। नंबर 3, आप मेरे को बोलिए अनुराग जी, जब प्राइस राइज इतना इंपॉर्टेंट इशू है तो इन्होंने क्या डिस्कस किया? ये सिर्फ ईडी के बारे में डिस्कस कर रहे थे, ये सिर्फ एक परिवार को बचाने की बात कर रहे थे। तो मैं आपसे सही सहमत हूं, हां आप फिर ये डिस्कस करिए, पर मैं आपको एक बात बोलूं, परिवार के सामने महंगाई कम है, परिवार के सामने महंगाई का कोई अहम नहीं है। और जब महंगाई का कोई अहम नहीं है तो आप उसको डिस्कस क्यों करेंगे? आप पार्लियामेंट को ठप करेंगे, आप पार्लियामेंट को बंद करने की चेष्टा करेंगे। आप पार्लियामेंट, एक मिनट अनुराग जी, मैंने आपको नहीं इंटरप्ट किया, मैं तो हर वक्त प्रॉपर्ली बिहेव करता हूं। अब मेरी लास्ट जो बात है, आपने सही कहा कि पार्लियामेंट के अंदर यह चर्चा होनी चाहिए। उन्होंने क्या कहा? हम लोग पार्लियामेंट के बाहर करेंगे। अरे भाई, अगर आप पार्लियामेंट के बाहर करेंगे तो आप कौन सी डेमोक्रेसी की बात कर रहे हैं? आप कौन से संसद की बात कर रहे हैं? आप कौन सी चर्चा की बात कर रहे हैं? तो मेरा यही कहना है, अगर हम देश में कोई डिस्कशन चाहते हैं, अगर देश में हम कोई मुद्दे को उठाना चाहते हैं, तो हम कहां उठाएं? रास्तों पे उठाएं या संसद में? क्योंकि अगर आपको रास्तों पे ये उठाना है, फिर आप संसद जाइए नहीं। हम लोग क्यों आपको पैसा दे रहे हैं? क्यों आपको एमपी फीस मिल रही है? आप क्यों इतना इलेक्शन पे खर्चा कर रहे हो? आप इसलिए कर रहे हो क्योंकि आप समझते हो कि संसद ही डेमोक्रेसी की अहम एक
और ये बात सोहेल सेठ ने पहले भी कही थी कि चर्चा अंदर होनी चाहिए, सड़कों पर नहीं। तो आप समझते हैं राहुल गांधी गलत थे?
नहीं, मैं सोहेल जी,
कांग्रेस पार्टी गलत थी?
मैं अपनी बात कह लूं, सोहेल जी की बात से सहमत हूं, लेकिन देश में पार्लियामेंट को ऑर्डर में लाने की जिम्मेदारी किसकी है? सरकार की है। तो सरकार अपने नहीं, सरकार सारी जिम्मेदारी से भाग जाएगी। पार्लियामेंट चलाने की जिम्मेदारी सरकार की है सोहेल जी, सरकार अपनी जिम्मेदारी से नहीं भाग सकती। ये बोल के कि नहीं पार्लियामेंट नहीं चले, चलवाओ।
आपने मेरे को अपने घर पे बुलाया भोजन के लिए, अनुराग बडोरिया ने सोहेल सेठ को बुलाया कि भाई आओ मेरे घर पे भोजन कर लो। मैं आपके घर पे आता हूं, फिर मैं बोलता हूं यार तुम्हारा खाना तो बहुत ही बदतर है, मैं बाहर जाके ना समोसा चाट खा लूंगा। तौहीन नहीं हुई आपकी? हुई। अब आपने जो कहा कि संसद में जो डिस्कशन होनी चाहिए, वो संसद में तो कोई डिस्कशन करना नहीं चाहता। आप सही कहते हैं, रूलिंग पार्टी की जिम्मेदारी है संसद को चलाना, बिल्कुल। पर अगर कोई चलाने नहीं दे,
ऐसा
तो
नहीं
रूलिंग
होता
पार्टी क्या करेगी?
ऐसा नहीं होता है, सरकार की जिम्मेदारी होती है।
जीवीएल नरसिम्हा राव, you know, everybody is saying, is the BJP giving it a new twist? Is the Congress party, you know, is it only interested in the ED? My question to you is, do you really believe that inflation is an issue for people in this country? Yes or no? And if it is, what are the steps that will be taken? Can we have a discussion on that instead of talking about every sundry issue but what is troubling the Aam Aadmi?
Navika ji, certainly management of inflation, ensuring that the inflation remains within the tolerance limit set by the RBI, this is a top priority for the government. And Honorable Finance Minister on the floor of Parliament, I was present in the Rajya Sabha, so I can say from Rajya Sabha, she said it's certainly an issue that we are addressing. It's an issue of concern. But we are doing, it's also a fact that we are doing far better compared to every other major economy and every country around the region.
Navika.
Certainly that cannot be ignored. And we have to look at the performance of Modi ji's government and Atal ji's government and compare it with the Congress government. We come out in flying colors. There was double-digit inflation for most part of the second UPA era. Why would the Congress, did it not hurt the poor then? We are certainly cognizant of it today, but then we are not blaming it on the opposition. But the opposition also has a duty to perform. You are in government. The Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, there are opposition governments. Why are they not controlling? Why are they not reducing the VAT prices, VAT taxes? The government, central government has reduced excise duty twice.
True,
so
Sanjay Jha.
Energy being an important component
what
of
is the
inflation, why doesn't the
What is the
opposition
Congress's contribution to reducing inflation other than sitting on the streets and challenging Delhi police? The question is, you have not reduced duties on petrol, diesel because you don't want to do it. You want to only blame the center. Your parties, your finance ministers of states, 2 states that you have, were sitting in the GST council. They acceded to these decisions over there. They didn't say anything. They didn't even do a press conference. They didn't even raise a voice when this you know, was decided within the GST council. Everything is post facto. And let me tell you some numbers. Rice increased in the 5 years, last 5 years of UPA 2 by 64%. It's increased in the last 5 years of Modi government by 20%. Tomato prices 242% up in Manmohan Singh's last 5 years, 11% up now. 90% increase in potato prices then, 21% increase now. 71% increase in milk prices then, 24% now. So both the Modi government have had an issue with inflation, but their problem is less than the problem that you gave the Aam Aadmi. So why is this hypocrisy about you being the only party that worries about Aam Aadmi? Number one. And number two, seriously? With the Ashok Gehlot sitting next to Rahul Gandhi, an elected, popularly elected chief minister, he says, institutions अगर आपके पास हों तो election जीतना आसान है. Seriously, Sanjay Jha?
Well, Navika, since you have raised many points, let me respond to all of them very, very quickly. It is absolutely astonishing that GVL Rao, and I'm surprised even Sohail, seem to be saying that relatively India is better off in inflation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that you can't compare the inflation in India, which has over 350 million people living below the poverty line. Mr. Rao, he should know that roughly 230 million people went into poverty during the pandemic, and they haven't come up. The neo-middle class has vanished, Mr. Rao. India today is struggling on poverty, forget growth. And you're talking about GDP growth on a very low base. I mean, you know, stop kind of fooling the people of India on fake news. Economics, unfortunately, is not subject to rhetoric. And let me remind him, since he's rubbishing the Congress, during the 10 years of the Congress, we had a GDP growth rate of 8%. And 70 million people above the poverty line. What are you talking about? The more critical point, Navika, is this, that at the end of the day, we need to realize that the opposition party must have a right to dissent. Why does a party in power stop it? Because they don't want the people to know the truth, and that's how democracy is getting fostered. Price rise is a issue. Can Mr. Rao deny that we have record unemployment in the country? The demographic dividend story of India is dead. It's over. India will soon have an aging population. Who's responsible?
One minute.
For power. And by the way, as far as crude oil is concerned, it is a government of India that imports crude. You can't blame the state government for having its excise duty or its state tax at some level. It is the central government that is responsible for monetary and fiscal policy.
Navika, I must respond because he named me.
Oil prices. He should know his economics. But as
I must respond because he named me.
BJP, if somebody knows economics, then I'm a Bharatnatyam dancer.
Well then, you should also remember that the constitution that you hold so dear to your heart, the same constitution was, the amendments were torn. Your government used to pass and Rahul Gandhi used to tear. And you know what else they've done. But Suhail said.
I don't know if Sanjay Jha is a Bharatnatyam dancer, because if he were, he'd make a very, very good one at that. Having said that, now let me give you a lesson in economics since you asked for it. Actually, you asked GVL Rao, but I'll give it to you. It is no one's case that India's inflation must be seen in perspective in isolation. I have said it repeatedly that all nations measure their inflation and their GDP qua each other. Otherwise, there's no point measuring GDP. I can say Sanjay Jha is the best thing after sliced bread, but I have to tell you it's sardo or multigrain, number one. Number two, it is no one's point that dissent should be banned. I said in my opening remarks, and I'm repeating, dissent must be there. Disagreement must be there. Disagree without being disagreeable. What we are seeing in today's India is the advent of being disagreeable. Number four, and I said that to my good friend Anurag, please protest as much as you can in a place where change can happen, where laws can be altered. And that place is Parliament when I last checked. If you want to take everything outside Parliament and make it extraneous, you will never find democracy. Number five, as Mita Prakash said, Rahul Gandhi represents the Congress, which represents the grand old party. To then say that if I had institutions under my control, I would win elections, you're doing two things. You're demeaning the ability of your party to win elections, because it seems as if you could hijack or borrow or, subvert the system. Number two, what kind of message are you sending out as a so-called youth leader to people in India? Did Modi sneak in through the back door? And I'm no votary of Modi or Amit Shah or anyone. I couldn't be bothered. He won an election. Respect that. The only way to counter him is to win an election. Then you say, I will control the institutions. Are you decrying the Supreme Court of India? Are you decrying the Election Commission of India? Are you decrying Parliament? Are you decrying the forces? Because these are our institutions.
Mita Chakraborty, can you deny 30 seconds before I get GVL Narsimha Rao?
Can I quickly come back? Yeah. So firstly, we have been talking about dignity, protesting in a dignified manner, and I completely agree that there should be dignified protests and dignified dialogues. However, where was the dignity when Mrs. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra was getting dragged by the police force today? And we have seen many such scenes. It's just not about Mrs. Priyanka Gandhi. Secondly, we keep talking every time that there is a voice against the central ruling dispensation, there is always a reference that Mr. Modi had won 2 elections. Of course he had. Congress had won several elections in independent India as well. However, let me remind you that even in 2019, in the best ever performance, Mr. Modi's NDA secured 39% of people's mandate and 61% vote went to opposition parties,
the same opposition parties, Mita Chakraborty, which are not willing to sit with you and do business as a joint front. How much did Congress get? Smita Prakash, is this mathematics where you just add them all together and make it one versus the other? Is Mamata Banerjee willing to sit next to Congress party for a joint front? Is KCR willing to sit with the Congress party? Is Akhilesh Yadav willing to sit with Congress party? What is the Congress talking about in terms of the 61% of opposition vote?
No.
Smita.
I have no idea where this mathematics is coming across, because it just doesn't add up. Even for the vice president polls, they can't get together for a woman candidate. So I don't know where this is coming about. Repeatedly they've been talking about what can the Congress do. After all, we are in the opposition. The fact is that the Congress party, when in UPA, at that time they had the National Advisory Committee, right? That NAC, it made all the policies and programs. They were the guidelines which the Manmohan Singh government had to follow. This was when they were the ruling party. Now they are in the opposition, reconstituted, and come up with ideas as to how you will tackle unemployment, how you will tackle inflation, or whatever it is that you think is hitting the people. Instead, all you can do is these bombastic statements that democracy is under threat, Hitler Raj aa gaya hai. These are not going to resonate at all with the people. The people want to know, how can you change our lives? They, whether you believe it or not, think that Modi and Shah and Hemanta Biswa and the others can bring about change in their lives, but you are not able to convince even at state level that you can bring about a change. So if you want to prove that, bring about your economics, bring about your papers. If parliament is not the place, then TV debates mein to le aao. Bring about, you have Mr. Baduria who's talking about it, but you won't have the Congress coming up with actual statements as to how they would have tackled it had they been in government. There is no shadow cabinet. As far back as Rahul Gandhi's cabinet, when Rahul Gandhi was in the opposition, Rajiv Gandhi was in the opposition, he used to have a shadow cabinet.
Sanjay Jha, do you have any constructive suggestions, or is it just on the streets that you want to protest and say democracy is dead?
Well, Navika, let me tell you, consultations, constructive dialogue, this is exactly what should be happening. But as everybody knows, in any democracy, Navika, the government has to actually encourage people or political parties to have a conversation. I remember once upon a time that I believe we were political opponents. GVL's party and my party should be seen as political opponents, a contest of ideas in the electoral place. But what we have become in the perception of the people that I talk to, that are political parties each other's enemies? Are we talking about a ruthless destruction of the other? The Congress's leadership, I'm glad.
All right, you have a breakdown in communication with the treasury benches, with the government. At least give an alternative thought that people of India can vote for you when elections come. Do you even have that plan of action? And is this the reason why you lose elections? Because you don't have an alternative plan. Sanjay Jha, that is the challenge that the Congress is facing. And GVL Narsimha Rao, is the Congress party, decrying the fact that there is no communication or atmosphere for any dialogue with the government? Or is the Congress party really bereft of an alternate plan or constructive suggestions?
Navika, the whole country has realized that post 2014, the Congress has not come to terms with reality. It's declining performance in elections, and they simply want to believe to be the monarchy in this country. Let me refute some very bogus statements that were made on this program. One bogus statement is, oh, majority vote you did not get, so people are against you. The Congress party, except in 1984 Lok Sabha election, never got majority vote. In the very first general election in 1951 and 52, only 46% people in the country voted, and Jawaharlal Nehru led Congress got only 45% vote. In 1951-52, after claiming to be the sole party that brought independence, but they got 364 seats. So what are you complaining against? You never got more than 50% vote. Most of the time the Congress got only 40% and won elections. And regarding Sanjay's fallacious claims, I think it's who is saying that India's poor? Prime Minister Modi ji has provided a safety net to the poor throughout the corona period. 20 crore women were given 30,000 crores directly into their bank accounts. 12 crore farmers were given substantial amount of cash assistance. We did not follow Rahul Gandhi's great idea of giving handouts to everybody, because that would have landed India into a big mess, like most of the US and European countries have faced. Rahul economics would have bombed. Thank God nobody is here to take Rahul Gandhi's advice and his economist advice. Prime Minister Modi ji's ideas and economic policies have bailed out India's economy, have ensured that we revitalize and we become the largest growing economy once again. What do we
Well, the fact of the matter, Mr. GVL Narsimha Rao, it is true that we've had a terrible last 2 years with the pandemic, and the pandemic still continues. It's not as if we've been able to put it behind us. These have been challenging times, not just for us in India, but for people across the world. Having said that, there are a few serious challenges that people in this country are facing. Tax burdens, unemployment, inflation, these are real issues. While we've done well in managing the pandemic with the vaccination and the booster doses that we've done, and we've done it at a scale that the countries abroad in the West and developed countries are looking at India's example. So we have some reason to pat our backs. But do we have a problem as far as inflation and unemployment is concerned? Of course we do. So can we please stop the political point scoring and get down to the drawing board to look at solutions to the problems of people, and just taxing them again and again and again cannot be a solution. The government will have to come up with a blueprint to put India out of its misery, because most Indians are suffering under inflation. However, brownie points between political parties continue unabated, and that really gives no relief to the people of India. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on the Newshour tonight. Good night, be safe. I'll see you on Monday, same time, same channel, and the same show, the Newshour at 9.